I'm making this video because as I've been trying to get people into Tekken, I've realized that a lot of them are getting stuck at red and purple ranks and starting to get frustrated. And it makes sense. This is the mid-level of Tekken. This is the middle of the bell curve where everyone kind of gets stuck eventually. And this video is meant for taking people to kind of the next level, transitioning people from mid-level to high-level Tekken. I've noticed a lot of people get frustrated at these ranks and kind of call it like ELO hell, because this is the level where your low level to mid level Tekken tactics stop working against better opponents. This is the level where people have seen the game or see the game at a much deeper level than you do, and you just can't comprehend that at the current moment. So this video is for getting you from that mid level to that high level, just sharing a few tips that I've learned over the years and getting you up to speed on all the things that high level players see that you don't. So the most egregious thing I see when it comes to low level and mid level Tekken is they all play on immediate timing. So what immediate timing is like when I throw a move, immediately I'm throwing out another move, and immediately the other person is trying to throw a move. So like low level Tekken, they have no kind of comprehension of frames. So maybe they'll just like spam. I don't know. They'll just like spam 1. Mid-level Tekken would be like 1, if it hits, let's continue the pressure. If that hits, let's continue the pressure. If it gets blocked, let's back up. This is kind of low-level to mid-level Tekken. It's not a huge gap, but there is like some kind of fundamental understanding there. Higher-level Tekken is where you start seeing that frames don't matter at all. Kind of a hyperbole, of course frames matter, but not to the extent that you think of. I've talked to plenty of red rank players that kind of know all the frame data about their character. Like, I don't even know, I couldn't tell you half the frame data of my characters, to be honest with you. But these red rank, purple rank players, they know it like front to back. And that's actually a problem, because when you play by frames, you tend to play extremely predictably. What do I mean by predictable? Well, if you're in mid-level Tekken, you probably understand how to beat low-level players. Low-level players just mash their controllers. Like they just spam. Like they have no idea what they're doing. So a lot of players get to this like red rank to purple rank by doing frame traps. They do stuff like down forward 3 into forward 1+2. This is a +3 into an I-14 frame trap that beats everything but a jab. Very, very effective against someone that's just mashing like launchers, you know? But when you start playing against higher level players and you play by the frames, you become extremely, extremely predictable. And this is why frames don't matter when you get to higher level Tekken. I'm being facetious here, but just bear with me. So if I'm playing by the frames all the time and I'm doing this frame trap, representing it all the time, I become very predictable. This Kazuya player now understands what I'm going to do. He understands my pattern. And the beautiful part about Tekken is that your patterns will get you killed. There's always a way to break a flowchart. There's always a way to break a pattern. And this is why Tekken is still, even in the Tekken 8 system, a very defensive game. Let me explain. So let's say that I've been kind of representing this flowchart the entire game. Down forward 3 into forward 1+2. This Kazuya player, he's high level. He understands that. Now, next time he sees the down forward 3, he's going to sidewalk to the right. Watch what happens. Same flowchart, I'm dead. I'm legitimately dead. I die to an electric because this flowchart that I created. Very, very small, but a good player will understand these flowcharts and punish you to the maximum for it. So rule number 1 of high level Tekken is that you can never, ever be predictable. And the easiest way for a mid-level player to be predictable is by playing by the frames. So next time you're in the lab, next time you're thinking about your gameplay, just forget about your frames. I guess like remember frames up to the point where you realize things are punishable. Startup frames don't matter, because when you think all the time about startup frames, you're going to start becoming a more predictable player. So that's kind of my rule 1 of Tekken, is don't be predictable, don't play by the frames. The next tip I have for mid-level players is to stop focusing so much on mechanics. So one thing that I hear from red rank players especially is they're like, oh, I spend so much time in the lab. Like, why am I not getting better as a player? It's probably because your labbing looks like this. Like, you're just like practicing mechanics. Like, I don't know. I don't even have good mechanics. I can I don't play Mishibas, right? I can't even do it in electric. Something like that. When you practice mechanics, you're not actually practicing Tekken. Like, good mechanics will maybe make you win 2 to 3% more of the time, whereas just becoming a better player can make you completely blow up players at your current rank. I'd say that practicing mechanics and combos is just ego stroking. It's not actually learning the game. It's not improving you as a player. So if you practice by just going in practice tool and doing wave dashes and electrics and making perfect KBDs, like I can't even do, look at my inputs, like I'm not even doing perfect KBDs and I'm still a good player. You don't need any of this to become a better Tekken player. How do you actually practice Tekken? You play the game, you play against people, and you try to understand their patterns, and you try to understand the tools that you have to break it. So that previous example of the Lily flowchart, you need to understand that the players at your level are not very complex. They have patterns that are extremely easy to read. You need to understand what tools you have in your kit, like your move list or in your movement options, to beat predictable patterns. And that is what takes you from a mid-level Tekken player to a higher level Tekken player. What does that involve? That involves learning when to sidestep. And this isn't a sidestep guide, so I'm not going to teach you how to do that, but I'm sure you can extrapolate a little bit from this video. Learning how to sidestep, learning how to backdash, learning opportunities that you can disrespect an opponent's pressure, learning places where you can like enforce mix-ups versus like doing pokes, right? There's a lot of things in Tekken that are just not learned in the lab. They're only learned by playing games against opponents, creating a theory on how to beat them, executing that theory, and seeing if it works or not. That is how you become a better Tekken player, not doing... I can't believe I can't do an electric right now. Yeah. Not just going in the lab and doing electrics. So my third tip kind of brings my first and second tips together. So my third tip is don't be afraid to hold block. And that kind of relates to my first and second points. My first being that you don't want to be predictable, and my second being that you want to read situations. By being confident in just holding block, you're giving yourself time and space to download the opponent, and you're also giving your opponent time and space to be downloaded. So when I was playing in red and purple ranks, because of course like everyone starts out in this ranks at the lowest rank and they have to climb out. When I was climbing out of those ranks, a lot of players have the attitude of just like constantly just throwing shit because they're scared of what their opponent's going to do. They aren't confident and they're not confident in holding block. They're not confident on their ability to read defensive situations, and because of that, they're instead going to crutch very heavily on their offense. I main Yoshimitsu, who's a very defensive character, contrary to popular belief, I guess. And against these players, I legitimately just backdashed, held the block. Maybe I ate a hell sweep a couple times, like it doesn't matter. Maybe I lost a whole round because of hell sweeps. Maybe I lost a whole set because of hell sweeps. But eventually I caught on, and I figured out what's the lowest risk option to kill them. And usually that option was backdash, eat a move, maybe. Just keep backdashing, and then I throw my safe down forward too. And I do that twice in a round and they die. Meanwhile, they had to hell sweep me 4-5 times before I die, and each time they do that, they could die because I'm threatening a launch punish. Like, it really is as simple as letting your opponent mess up in these ranks, understanding how they can mess up, giving them the space to mess up, and then just going through your move list and checking out what is the easiest way to take advantage of this. It's kind of why I play Yoshimitsu. I have 200 moves that I can use to take advantage of a situation, but you can do it on any other character because everyone has the best disrespect tool available to them, sidestepping. They might not have flash, but sidestepping is, 80% of the time as good or even better than flash. So just hold block. It really is that simple. Hold the block, let your opponent mess up, understand how to defuse the bomb that they're building, and take advantage of it. And that is the easiest way to become a higher level player. When you play like offensive, like balls to the wall, like I'm gonna mix you up all the time Tekken, you're taking so much more risk than a player that's just blocking. Like when you throw hell sweeps, like doesn't it scare you? It is a lot easier to play Tekken when you're defensively minded. As a side note, I'm not telling you to block all the time. Like you have to be offensive, you have to be defensive. It has to switch up. But there's some periods where you should just be defensive. Like you should switch it up. You should be confident, because at this rank, if you're red or purple rank, you're probably there because you're just like doing just random shit. Like just I don't know, doing just like spamming in their face, and you need to stop that before it gets you killed when you're facing a better opponent. And just as like a final note, I'm not telling you to hold block all the time. There are ways to make your opponent mess up by being aggressive. So, for example, my down forward 2 is like the move that I spam, and a lot of good players will just start sidewalking it to my left, and I'll die for it. So instead, I'll just start doing moves that track to that direction. So, and these flowcharts are like harder to see when you're not looking for them, but when you are looking for them, they become so easy to spot. So even against like players that are like Tekken God level plus, they'll run into these flowcharts where they're stepping to my left because obviously they're scared of this down forward too. I mean, it is like a lowest risk, highest reward move in the entire game. So why wouldn't they do this? But if I'm familiar with these situations, if I'm familiar with how people react to my offense, now I can do moves that deal with that defensive interaction. So that's kind of my little segue. You can also use offense to make your opponent make mistakes. The last tip I have is just about just basic risk reward management. So there's times where you do need to take risks. Like there's times where you do need to hit like hell sweeps, you know, but you don't need to be in mix-up mode all the time. You could do mix-ups in like two great places. Like you could do it at the start of the round, like get an HP lead, or you could do it like when you're behind and need to come back. Like those are great places to do mix-ups. But if you have an HP lead, but you can still die to a launcher, like maybe you have 70 HP and they have 30, why are you hell sweeping? Like the risk reward is not in your favor, because if you get blocked, you're dead. Like you just neutralized your life lead. Of course, like if you hit them, maybe they're dead. But personally, I don't think it's the right time to take that risk all the time. So in my own personal gameplay, what I like to do with Yoshi is like, Yoshi's a very defensive character, like I said. So I like to maybe like enforce some kind of like mix up, like maybe I go into like helicopter stance, like do some cool grab mix ups, or maybe I just like play in their face a bit. But once I have that HP lead, I'm just like backing up, you know, throwing pokes every now and then. Maybe I'm like advancing, but I'm just like dash blocking or throwing my safe launcher. Tekken is about risk management, and if you're just doing the highest risk option all the time, you're not playing the game right. Just understand the situation you're in. Pick the right amount of risk to reward that fits the situation you're in, and you're going to win a ton more games. So, I guess stop hell sweeping all the time, but don't be afraid to hell sweep when the time comes. So just to summarize my points really quickly, number 1, stop being predictable. Frames especially can make you predictable, like if you're doing frame traps on block all the time. Number 2 is to make sure that you're actually practicing by playing games, reading situations, figuring out how to beat situations as they come up. That's essentially the entirety of Tekken as a game, is understanding situations and beating situations. Number 3, just be confident in holding blocks sometimes to read your opponent. Understand what makes your opponents tick, give them time to mess up, and capitalize on it. And finally, manage your risk and reward. You know, don't be afraid to hell sweep, but sometimes do hell sweep because it's the right thing to do. Honestly, that 4th tip is the one that I struggle the most with because I play Yoshimitsu. Of course, I'm going to Harakiri to try to kill them every single time, even if it's not the right move, but that's a bit different. And finally, just have fun, because like I said, you are playing Tekken because you want to have fun, but try to play as optimally as you can, especially if you want to climb out of the ranks that you're in. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and if you have any more questions, put it in the comments. I'm always happy to answer.